That automatically start the
You know what?
Hello? Can people hear me out there? I hope so, because we're just sitting here in, I don't know, we'll call this downtown Augusta, and the remote camp is the eastern side of the river. I can look out the window, see the river, and see the Capitol. Things have changed a lot. We've moved over to the other side of the river now, in our home little digs here in the office. We have our office up running, and our kitchen is almost there. We got money Friday. We're buying equipment, so we'll start putting in stoves and cooktops, et cetera, et cetera. So this year in review, we're going to start with just a little webinar here. So one of the big things that's happened recently with legislative bills. We've had 13 bills this year. 9 of them went out of committee as ought to pass. 7 of the 9 require us to do some kind of substantial amount of work. So I'll go down the bills real quick, and then I'll explain where we are with them. The shaming bill, 167. The breakfast after bill, 359. 454 was the local produce fund, which puts money in the produce fund. It also creates a position here to work with the produce fund and to work with farmers. The swine bill law, which basically all that law does is clarify that the food service department schools do not have to validate, hunt down, or any of that to make sure they're licensed to accept their scraps. If they want the scraps, it's up to them to decide to follow up on their own license and law. 541 was the food waste donation share table bill. 549's on appropriation. 577 is the at-risk child health care program, which says if they are 50% or greater, then they have to do at-risk after school, or they have to go through a procedure to opt out. 605 was the online application. 701 is another online application program. 1035 was talking about the fresh fruit vegetable program to streamline it, make the process easier for you to apply. 1159 is to eliminate hunger. It's basically committee work where DOE, Agriculture, DHS, and some other departments meet to come up with a plan to end hunger. 1344 is an act to improve school nutrition. Can't say what that bill is about because that's the only thing I ever saw about the bill is that one line. And then 1351 was talking about the food recovery as well. So from there, 605, which was one of the online applications, that bill is gone, it's dead. 1035, a fresh vegetable program to streamline the application, that was dead. Basically what that bill wanted to do is for the department to fill out your application for you, and then you would just have to just make sure everything was in there. But that's not going to work because you need signatures from the principal, superintendent, food service director, et cetera, et cetera. So that one's dead. 1344, act and improve the school nutrition. That bill is dead as well. And like I said before, that's the only text that ever came out on that bill. It was called the concept bill. And then 1351 was the food recovery bill, and the committee killed that one with the sponsor's permission because what they did was they took 1351 and combined it with another one. So one bill took care of both issues. So pending means at this point is made out of committee. The committee is referred on to the next step. For example, LD 351, breakfast after the bill, that has been moved out of committee. It has gone to the appropriations, and it's up to them to come up with the money to fund that bill. And anything could happen in appropriations. They could change the bill. They could vote it down. They could vote it up. There's a lot of variety and options they could do there. 451 is the local produce fund, and that's passed in the houses and the committee, and that's sitting on the appropriation table as well. That involves money for the produce fund. It'll be the first time it's been funded, and they didn't change the law or the requirements. It's still minimally processed. It's still produce. It has to come from the farmer, food stands. It can't be from a broad brand distributor. But that's what that does. It also creates a position to help manage that, help do some outreach, and many other things that we need to do to work with the farm to school program. 549 is, I believe, the share bill. It's just waiting for money. We don't know where that'll go. 577 is the at-risk child health care school appropriations. 577 could be a significant financial impact on some school districts if they don't have support of administration or support of who's running the program. It also means to us that if we have a large increase on schools that join the program, it will obviously increase our work drastically. And 701 is the online application. This is where the state of Maine will go out and buy an online software program that will be available to all schools to use at no cost. The state of Maine would have the license, and then we would go from there. Okay? And I hear somebody on the phone there, so.
Okay. Can people hear me now? Shake your head up and down. Oh, that won't work, will it? All right, we can hear me now. So I don't know how much you lost. Do I need to go back a ways or?
Go back.
All right. So I'm gonna back up because we always had an audio problem and I didn't know I had an audio problem, so. So if people that heard it, sorry, but here we go. This year we had 13 bills. 9 of them got out of committee ought to pass. 7 of those 9 do require quite a bit of work on our part to get things done. It may be work with another agency, maybe doing the stuff ourselves. It may be a simple web page, but it could be a number of things. So this is just a list of bills. The first bill on the list is the 167, the shaming bill. The shaming bill, everybody's heard about the shaming bill quite a few times. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. The next one down is the 359, which is the breakfast bill. This is breakfast after the bill. What it's there for is to increase participation. And then to the next one down, 454 is a local produce fund. Local produce fund. What this bill does is actually puts money into the produce fund this time. Right now, as probably most of you know, the funding has come from where we can get it. It may be from food being returned, it may be a donation, but it comes from someplace else that has been state supported. So then 497 is a swine bill. There's been a lot of schools like to give their scraps to pig farmers or other type of farmers. And we went through a spell where they couldn't give it out unless they were licensed, which is still true. That's a federal law. But what the bill does is says we don't have to make sure they have a license. So if someone shows up at your door and says, I want scraps, then you say, okay, then it's up to them to determine if they have a license or if they need to get a license. You can tell them that you can suggest it or talk to them, but it is not required. So your requirement is to make sure that good sanitation practices are observed, food's picked up, walk to the kitchen, et cetera, et cetera. Then 541 is the food waste bill, donations, and the share table has been added to that. And what they want us to do is be clear what you can do with your leftover food and donations, what you can do with food waste, and the share table. The share table that Maine has, they thought was overly restrictive. They looked at the USDA one and felt that Maine could do a better job with a share table policy. So we are tasked with working with the DHS to come up with a share table policy and to see if we can make some improvements to it. They already have sent me a draft, and so we're going to work and see if we can work at that to make it best for everybody. 549 is a reduced lunch, which means that the reduced lunch category will be funded by the state of Maine, just like the breakfast one. So reduced lunch students wouldn't pay anything, but the state would give you the 40 cents from state coffers instead of from the parent. 577 is an at-risk child dog care, which means that if the school is 50% or greater, they have to do child dog care after school, which could be a snack program, or it could be a snack dinner offered to the students, and the guidance and regulations to go with that. But I do caution people on anything that is done that the food service director delegates out somebody to manage. For example, on the 577, if that comes to pass and you start an at-risk program after school and you're providing a snack, as a director or whoever's in charge, you need to check regularly to make sure they're still doing it properly and they're not taking shortcuts, because they probably don't understand all the rules and regulations why this is done this way or that way. So be aware if that passes, you want to stay on top of that. LD 605 is the online application where there will be a web-based application for parents to complete, submitted by web and processed on the web directly to your school district. 701 is the same thing, an online application. There's slight variations in the two, but that's both online applications. 1035 is a fresh fruit and vegetable program application to streamline the application, make it easier. Basically, they wanted the department to fill out the application on behalf of the school, which can't be done because you need signatures and local buy-in to have that done. 1159 is a committee to eliminate hunger. This would be done with a group of agencies and stakeholders to come up with a plan to eliminate hunger in the state of Maine. 1344 is what they call a concept bill. The name of the bill is Act to Improve School Nutrition. When I read that, of course, I'm saying, oh my goodness, now what's going to happen? And the text, what the bill actually said was nothing. It said the same thing, an act to improve school nutrition. So really never had any meat to it to begin with. 1351 is the food recovery, what you can do with food that's left over, who you can donate to, and what you can do that. So those are the bills that were put forward this year. And all those bills put forward, 605 was the online application, that one of those is dead. They end up combining 605 and 701 together. 1035 was a fresh fruit vegetable program that went away. 1344, Ag for School Nutrition, like I said, that was just a concept bill, so that went away. and then 1351 with food recovery, and they rolled that into the other bill, so that covered both areas. So that was that. So then we went to bills that are pending. These are bills that are in appropriations right now, and we're just waiting for appropriations to find money for them, to say they're funded, and then they would move on. So the first one is breakfast after the bill. Like I said, that's an appropriations. It means that breakfast will be served sometime after the school started, during the beginning class, right after the first class, something like that. Again, this bill here, you want to make sure that if it's delegated out to somebody else, that is being run correctly. The students are getting what they're entitled to. So whenever you offer a student a meal and you collect reimbursement, that student expects to buy a complete breakfast, so make sure the complete breakfast is offered. There's a lot of support behind that from our local partners. So I think that's going to be a good move. It's actually proven in schools that have done this that participation has increased. So that's good, Bill. 454 is a local produce fund. That's what actually puts money in the produce fund. The same rules would apply. For every $3, you get $1 back. You submit a claim form, which is online. You have to tell us what you're buying. It has to be minimally processed. It has to be produce, and it can't come from a broad distributor. It has to be from a co-op, farm stand. And when you have doubts about that, give us a call. It's kind of a gray area in some places, but we'll work with you the best we can. So that'll be great if we get some money there. This 454 also includes a position, someone that can help us with this, that can do the outreach, work with local producers to see if we can get more people on board. Sometimes one of our problems with local produce or anything like that is the terminology. When we say one thing and they say something else, we may be talking about entirely two different things. So this is going to be a great opportunity to do that. Some of you people have heard of the Harvest the Month program. This program would probably move into this person too. The Harvest the Month is an excellent program, so I think that we're going to see a lot more of that, and it's going to grow. 549 is the reduced lunch. Again, that's looking for money. There's obviously a big price tag on that. So for every reduced lunch served in a public school, the state of Maine would give you 40 cents instead of 40 cents from the parent. 577 is the at-risk program, child health care food program. Again, that's an appropriations. There is a fiscal impact. It could cost some districts some money, and it could cost the state some money here to operate. As the number of schools increase, we would need people to do the pre-visits, the visits, and the technical assistance. And of course, the rate of reimbursement that the school would get would be an offset for you and a great thing for you. The state of Maine gets no funding from the federal government until we reach another threshold, and then we jump out the next tier of funding. So we may have to have some state assistance there. 701 is the online application. The online application will be web-based. It would be from the student or the parent putting the application in online, at home, library, wherever it might be. We're going to try to make sure there's a mobile app so it works on a phone, which seems to be quite the norm getting that right now. And the application will be processed through a software company that would divert the application to the food service director at the local school level for determining the eligibility or non-eligibility. And they would get a letter email back saying the same thing, says you're good to go, or whatever it might be. The way this works, there's a number of schools in Maine that already have something like this. Parents log in with an ID and a password, and it brings it up to their specific school, for their application for their students, so everything is kept confidential. This is a good way to improve confidentiality instead of the application coming in and staying on Mrs. Smith's desk. Then Mrs. Smith put it in an envelope, go down to the office, where Betty, the secretary, puts in another envelope and sends it over to the food service director. And then the food service director gets, 6 days later, and it has to be processed in 10 days, and today's Friday, so now we have 2 days to process it. So that should help improve that as well. It'll be a lot of questions. You don't have to print the applications, but it's got some good benefits to it as well. Now, what's actually passed is LD 167. The shaming bill has passed. It won't take effect until sometime towards the end of July. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, but that will, you won't be able to deny meals to any student that asks for a meal because they owe money. You can't throw the meal away. You can't take it away from them, et cetera, et cetera. And this applies only to the reimbursable meals, breakfast, lunch. It does not apply to a la carte. You can have your own a la carte policy, which you have now. If that's cash only, that doesn't change. It's only for the reimbursable meal. Any way that you identify a student that they owe money, then it will not be allowed under this law. And there's a lot of questions we've gotten on that. We've developed a frequently asked questions page. And that page we've sent to legal counsel. I just got it back just before this with comments. So we will be putting that together to be available for everybody to see. But keep in mind, it's based on the reimbursable meal. It's based on food. And you can't deny a student a request a reimbursable meal. So, you know, the question is, how many people really want to deny a kid a meal? Not many, if any at all. But that's we heard a lot of it. I would have first said nobody's going to do it, and then I heard testimony that's actually happening, which was kind of depressing to me to hear that. But moving on, LD 541 talks about food waste. It talks about donations, and it talks about the share table. Food waste, it tells you what you can do with your waste as far as donating it, throwing it away, things like that. What's available to you. So, and donation. Hi.
And I'll be
so mute your phone or whatever you're doing, because I don't know where it's coming from.
nothing up there. Ain't nothing up there anyway. What are they going up for? The planetarium or wherever it is up there in Eastern. I don't go to these big places.
Yeah. All right, so the donations.
Oh, my goodness is just starting with the party. Got nobody for gym tour, got nobody for summer school, got nobody for this, nobody for that. Maybe they'll have to cancel summer school.
You want to mute your phone? Hey, hello. Mute yourself there, please. We're hearing the whole conversation.
Absolutely. So they don't care what it costs, but I've offered, but nobody has.
Okay, so moving on, we'll try to overtalk someone who else is talking with us. Donations, when you prepare your meal, you keep production records right now, and your production records indicate if you have a lot of leftovers. The production records should be a way for you to determine if you're over preparing. There should not be a lot of food that's available to donate from our program. But if there is, because a field trip happened and they never told anybody that they're going on field trip and things were, happened and you had things left over, then we go from there. So then you have the share table. The share table is the policy that DHS came up with earlier, and the legislators felt that it was too restrictive and we could do a better job and improve the share table ability. So what the share table policy now does is to open it up, a little more flexibility. I got the draft from them already, so I haven't looked at it, but we'll look at the draft and see where we are. Again, this won't take effect until July, but it's a good bill, so we'll go from there. Hopefully, I think you'll see some improvements on it. There's some things we'd definitely like to see. If you have any questions on the share table policy, then feel free to email me or something like that, and I can make sure we try to address it, good, better, and different. speaking of emailing me, what we're going to do is we're going to continue the webinar, and any question you have, you send them in. Then we'll compile them and we'll send them back on the listserv so everybody can hear the same answer, and we make sure we're doing everything it's clear to everybody. 1159 is another bill to eliminate hunger. And this bill basically is just committee work that the different agencies and stakeholders will get together to form a plan to eliminate hunger in the state of Maine. So those are what we have for bills right now. And then what we're going to do is on the DOE has a budget too. I know it's a shock, but and the DOE budget is a big budget in the state government, but most of that money that goes through the DE budget goes back out to schools and reimbursement, essential services, et cetera, et cetera. But in that budget this year, we are fortunate enough to have two parts of that budget that are specific to us. One is the farm to school coordinator section, which basically creates a farm to school coordinator in DOE that is the same as LD 454. So the bill was put in at one point, and the Department of Education felt it was such a good need that they also put it in their budget. So they have in their budget the farm to school coordinator and the local produce funding increase, so they have money in that fund as well, which again would be the first time we did, which would be really, really a great thing for us. The other thing that's in the state budget for the education is the reduced lunch category reimbursement. So again, this is in two different places. So we feel pretty confident that we have a good chance of getting that through. So, but that's where we are with that. So then, some changes you're going to see coming up. One of the big changes is that right now everybody is on a 3-year review cycle. Starting next year, we are switching over to a 5-year cycle. We got a waiver from the federal government that allow us to go to a 5-year cycle. So instead of being reviewed every 3 years for administrative review, you're going to be reviewed every 5 years on the administrative cycle. And we're going to do 2 reviews at the same time. It'll look like one to you, but it's going to be 2. One is the administrative and one is the procurement. So we're going to do 2 reviews at the same time. It'll be 2 separate reports and 2 separate questions. You want to keep in mind on any of this, the administrative review or the procurement, and especially the procurement, some of those questions may not be a food service department response. You may have to talk to the business office or the accounting section or whatever to bring them into that loop. Procurement is a federal thing. It's for any federal program, school lunch, Title I or what it might be, but it's a procurement that is for everybody. You've probably heard the term super circular. They took 7 circulars and made it into 1. So now it's Part 2 CFR 200s. And right now, by doing that, they brought everybody with the same restrictions, same thresholds, et cetera, et cetera. So that's a big change to a 5-year cycle, admin and procurement. The other thing, the federal government allowed for states to decide on the whole grains, if they wanted to hold at the current 100%, or if they wanted to drop down to the acceptable 51%. In conversation with the commissioner, it's been decided that Maine is going to hold at 100%, just like we did last year. If you find this a hardship or a challenge, we have a simple form that you can look at, complete, and get back to us. But what we're hearing is there are some products that are still a challenge, but we're hearing that products are getting better every day. We're hearing that we've already switched over. I don't want to switch back again. And the commissioners say, what is the best thing for the children? And that's what we should be basing our decision on a lot of times is why are we here, and what is the best thing for our students and our children? So Maine will stick with the 100%, and we'll review accordingly. The sodium and the dairy, we are riding what the federal government said. We'll do the same thing that the federal government has decided for us to do. So that's a couple of changes. Next year, school year 2020, couple regulation changes, federal and some state changes are going to require that every year you'll upload the student application, the parent letter, the notification letter, and the price equity tool. Now, the student application, just because you use our application, you're still going to have to upload that application. We tried to do a simple check mark saying using hours, but that didn't fly. So everybody will have to upload all these things: student application, parent letter, notification letter, and the price equity tool. So they will require, if you do an online application, we'll need that as well, so we know what you're doing. And some other changes, because of many schools using a different variation of breakfast after the bell, breakfast in the classroom, and you had to write in for alternative serving system. We've added classroom to the list of acceptable points of service, so that we don't have to do a form. You just do your accountability sheet in your application packet, and you'll be able to click, I think it's E, which is classroom or remote for service. So that's going to eliminate all that paperwork for you. If you're doing a special provision, 1, 2, 3, or CEP, we only have provision 2 and CEP in Maine, then you're going to have to do an additional special provision agreement, which is basically a one-pager and asks some questions that we need to collect that we haven't collected in the past. If you're thinking about a special provision, it also would be beneficial for you to look at that. It may answer some of your questions and help you decide what you want to do. There are worksheets and spreadsheets. David Hardy's going to work with special provisions. We are going to offer a special provision training that will help people just get the understanding. The important thing is when special provision is the base year being absolutely perfect, no problems. So, because what happens when you go to year 2, 3, 4, it just keeps snowballing, making your errors bigger and bigger. And the special provisions, one program provision needs 1 decimal point, another one needs 2 decimal points. So we will talk about all that, get that all cleared out so you know where you are. Your agreement can be done after July 1st, and you can't do your application packet to the superintendent does the agreement. So after July 1st, superintendent can go and do your agreement. Every school district has to have a superintendent. It may be acting at the point, but they have to have a superintendent on board to do all the superintendent kind of work. So if it's an acting superintendent, he or she still can do the agreement, and that should be done as soon as you can. The application to participate deadline is August 15th. It's been August 15th for a couple years, probably as long as I've been here, which is a little more than 5 probably, but it's been a long time. That should be in by the 15th, and you cannot submit a claim form or be paid for a month prior to the application packet being in and approved. So if you don't get around to doing your final application to participate until October 1st, you cannot apply for September's money because we had no agreement on file for you to do that. If you want to get August money, you got to have your paperwork in by 4 August 30th, no matter what. But the deadline is the 15th because we find more and more errors. People taking a shortcut, people copying last year's, which is not true anymore, things like that. So that is essential to look at. The department is looking at a web-based administrative review process. The offsite form will be web-based. We'll do our paperwork on a web-based system. What this is going to do is allow us to collect a lot more data that we can use. We collect the data now, but it goes into a paper form, and we got to take the paper forms out, flip through them, and try to find, okay, what school had this problem? what county, and then at the end of the year, we have to prepare a massive report for the feds, which takes weeks to put all this stuff together. So that's one big advantage. We're looking at the web-based system. You'll be able to see what the status is on the corrective action. You'll be able to see what problems you had, and it doesn't go away. It's like in a cloud kind of thing. So some dates to think about. All these dates will be posted on our webpage. If you're not on the listserv, you need to get on the listserv. We found 2 districts recently that weren't on the listserv, and they missed 2 deadlines. One was a fresh fruit vegetable application, and the other one was for equipment assistance. Equipment assistance was awarded, I think the letters going out today or being drafted today for people that applied for equipment assistance from us via the federal government. Those will go out after they're gone through the process. But we got a little over $80,000, give or take, and we awarded dishwashers and reaches and things like that. We never get enough money, but any money we can get, we'll take. So that's that. So the listserv is very important. So back to basics. 12-hour course. Starts from apples to oranges and moves through it. If you're a brand new director or a manager of a single unit with no director over you, then you should call and make sure we know you are there, and we will usually offer you a discount for the first time attendance. People that have been before or people that have been around for a while, we let you in next. Seeing availability would be the concern. In the past, we've accommodated everybody that's wanted to attend, but this is 12 hours, back to basics, and it's not a training on every area. We're going to highlight all the different areas, put some questions in your head, and then move on. It's going to take you to attend other trainings to build on that. If you know somebody that's leaving, a director or senior manager, or you are a new senior manager, if you'll please let us know, and so we can make sure we're aware of you and we can invite you. Even if you know someone's leaving, you do not know who's coming in, we'd like to know that so we can follow up on it. The review training this year, under some of the changes and requests last year, we moved the training to be a full day, September 17th, and we will give you more details about that, but you can plan a full day of review training. We'll work with you. If you have questions, bring your questions with you. If you say, is my production record good? I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, bring it with you. And we'll have staff that can help look at that and guide you in the right direction. The idea for the review training, the idea of any training, is we want you to go and earn your money on reimbursement, but we want you to keep the money in reimbursement and not for us to show up and say, oh, you forgot to order meet me alternate, I can't pay for those meals. So the idea is for you to get the money and to keep the money. Just kind of a sidebar, when we go to a school district and you have 25 meals that are not claimable, and we say we can't pay for those meals, we take the federal money back. The federal money goes from you to us back to the federal government. Also, when we take money back from you, our subsidy here and how we operate, part of that's based on the number of lunches you serve. So if we take lunches from you, it also takes money out of our pocket as well. So we're not really excited about finding things either. So training is essential. You have to have so many hours of training every year, and it varies on your position. If you're a person that makes policy, plans, develops, then you are doing director duties. If you're the person that takes that plan or takes what was developed and puts it into action, then you are the manager. So you want to keep those two definitions real broad and simple. If you're doing some planning and planning the menu, planning the purchases, developing the SOPs, then you're acting as a director. It doesn't make any difference what you called. That's the duties you need, and you need to get director hours. Manager, again, if you're implementing those things, then you need to get manager hours. If you're working in the kitchen, keeping the manager and director out of trouble, then you need to get hours as well. And you really need to get those hours because we are professional people. We do something that nobody else does. you can't have a teacher step in and do anywhere near what you're doing. It takes skill. I mean, your customer service, your computer wizards, your menu planners, your dietitians, your sanitarians, and you're the grandmother, grandfather for all the kids. And you hear all these wonderful stories that you don't want to hear. So you are the counselor and everything else for these kids. So training is essential to make sure you know who you are. Verification is only half a day. That's the verification process required every year. Verification reports are due by November 20th. That means here. You have to have the process done by November 15th. You can start it when you start getting applications in. You can mark them, say, oh, this application is with $100 of the income per month. You can mark it. This is worth in $1,200 for the year. You can mark it. So you can mark them ahead of time. If you're using an online system, most systems will compile that information for you, give you how many you have to do, and it will report back what applications should be pulled for verification. Verification can also be done outside of the verification process. For example, if you have an application, this actually happened, by the way, an application that comes in and lists 2 adults and 2 kids, and there's income for one of the parents, lists 2 kids, and the second parent, there's no income listed. Well, in this particular case, the second parent worked in the school and received a paycheck from the school district. So that kind of like that was pulled for verification because obviously there was something wrong. Either they forgot it, they made a mistake, whatever. But that was verification for cause, and you can do that anytime during the year. Otherwise, you can take your application based on face value. The next date that I have is the fall informational meeting on October 10th. That's a fun time ahead by all. We do all kinds of fun, wonderful things. We'll do something on equipment. We'll do some personal development. We'll talk about changes and things like that. And we'll put all this out on the listserv and on our webpage saying where they are. The CNP web training, that is the online system for our reviews. And we'll talk more about that. And you'll hear a lot more about that as we get into this thing. So, food shaming, I'm just going to hit this and there's going to be 1,001 questions coming in, but I'm going to try to have you hold back till we get frequently asked questions. So the law prevents public schools from denying a reimbursable meal to an otherwise eligible student who requests it. So I'm not going to read this whole thing to you unless you want me to. But you can't embarrass a student, you can't throw them away, you can't identify them, anything based on the meal. And they have one here, you can't do chores, that's a federal requirement anyway. You can't use meals of punishment, you can't do that anyway, you do that. So a teacher can't say you can't go to lunch today because you haven't finished your homework, that's a punishment, that can't happen. They can send a kid down to get their meal and bring it back, but they can't refuse that meal to a kid or a student, I should say. Can't be a punishment kind. So that's the food shaming. Again, as Dr. July, we'll get a lot of questions about it now. You look at your charge policies. We are tasked here at DOE to come up with some ideas and try to help you with the outstanding debts. The USDA has come up with an excellent resource page that we're going to refer you to. We will take ideas and best practices that are submitted from the field because there's no way we here at the office have any really wonderful idea on how you're going to solve this problem. It's a national problem. The parents don't want to pay. And our fear is, there's 2 fears at this point about this bill in particular. One is that the parents will realize, oh, they're going to feed John after all, so I just won't send any money in until I get money from the tax return. And then the tax return comes in and, oh, the car needs 2 tires, so much for Johnny's lunch bill because you're going to feed him anyway, so it becomes a bill. The second thing that we're worried about is the fact that they may stop submitting applications. And by not submitting applications, that causes a lot more problems than the simple lunch program. We're working with other departments and agencies to see what other programs in the state it affects And I understand there's some school districts working together to see how it affects districts and parents in their home communities. So there's going to be quite a list I think we can put together on why parents should apply, but it could be a huge economic hit. You know, some of the simple things off the top of my head is if you don't get 50% free and reduced, what's going to happen to your summer program? What's going to happen to your after-school snack program right now if you're 51% or greater? All your students get snack at no charge and reimbursed at the free rate. You drop to 49%, and now you got to do accountability by free, reduced, and paid. So it's going to create more work if we don't get those applications. So it's going to be important to get those applications. So that is pretty much my little wonderful slideshow. Wonderful, wasn't it, huh? And then, so the other things, you know, like I said, we moved into a new facility. We're going to do some culinary training during the year in our kitchen. We're going to do some training for child health care, and we're going to do some training for the National Lunch Program. The National Lunch Program and the child health care may have things that overlap with each other. So we're not going to say this is just for National Lunch Program, this is just for child care. For example, that was given to me was, I'm going to teach how to do night safety. So that might be something for both teams, even in summer as well, that we can do together and benefit that. So there'll be 2 culinary opportunities per month in our kitchen. The way we have our kitchen set up, we can do no more than 20 people in the kitchen itself. And we have a conference room next door to it that seats another 20. So we may be able to do a hands-on, and then we may be able to flip over and do the classroom at the same time. So we could do things together and work that way. The kitchen is going to have stoves, ovens. The kitchen is a basic kitchen. We didn't add any fancy equipment to it. We wanted to keep it as basic as we can to meet the needs and what you're actually using in your schools. We've talked to some other people who are using our kitchen as far as ICN that may come up and help with us training. Unfortunately, we're not going to make a kitchen available to schools to come and use at this point anyway, for a lot of reasons at this point, but it's going to be an excellent opportunity for us to do that. So you've heard about legislative bills. The school benefit application is online. If you want to change that application, you can change it as long as it meets what's required in the 210s. If you do want to change your application, create your own, I suggest you do it soon and start sending it to us. So if there are any errors or issues, we can address that the day before school when you want to print them and hand them out. The thing about applications, even if we go with an online application, which I've heard is a great plus, you have to still offer paper as your primary. So you can't just say, I'm switching over to an online web-based application and not hand out or make the paper applications available. They still have to be available. There are a number of people that don't have computer access. They don't want to put their name on the internet or whatever reason, they just don't want to use computer or technology to submit that application. If you can submit it, then that is great. There's been some talk that some school districts don't want to get a paper application and get an electronic application. Now you got 2 applications. And we all know when there's 2 applications from a family, they aren't the same. They'd be different kids on it or different dollar amounts on it. So if you're requiring applications to come back and you want paper ones to come back, you may put a box on the top or on the bottom or someplace. Check here if you submit electronically. And that way they don't have to resubmit the paperwork all over again. And that could save you a little work as well. So summer starting, summer programs are out there. You want to look at your summer programs. If you don't have one nearby, maybe your neighborhood schools district's got one, maybe you want to work together. There's all kinds of wonderful things you can do for the kids in the summer. We don't want to leave them unfed and left with no meals. It's proven that in the summer program, as it rolls through, as they have good nutrition in the summer, their grades stay up. When they start school in September, the ones that don't participate in programs like that, the grades kind of slip and fall. So breakfast is going to be a big thing next year. We're seeing a lot of CP schools kind of drop out because of the income seems to be improving in the state of Maine. And we see more schools going to Provision 2, which Provision 2 basically is you feed all the students at no charge, and you claim them based on percents from the base years. USDA Foods, not a big change there this year. We did take all your input as far as what you thought we should be offering, and we offered that out to you to tell us which items to pick from. We picked the big items, and then we went shopping to see what we can match up with you. Federal government, we had our review in June, just like you do, and they determined that we should have offered the entire list to you, which I didn't do that. I didn't offer the black-eyed beans and the catfish eyes and the lobster lizard tails. But you know, there may be different things out there that we could offer you. We'll see. And NOI, no change this year. It's going to operate pretty much the same. This year, Terry Fitzgerald is going to handle the entire USDA food program, which means the USDA food program, NOI, the shipping, PFG, all that will fall onto Terry this year. So if you have any questions, you can email her, or you can email me and I can talk to Terry or email both of us. So that's where we are on that. And it'll still be in the wonderful computer program we've come used to and come to love. Don't forget there's many reports in NEO that could be useful. We always get the question, you know, what are we charging our kids for lunch? What's the district next we charge in? There is a student price report in NEO that you can look at, and it tells you every district in Maine. You can pick a year, you can pick a district and see what they're charging for lunch as well. If you have any questions, I encourage you to submit them electronically to Paul or myself. We will compile them and we will try to answer them and get them back to you in a simple email so everybody gets to know that. So I don't have anything else. What I'd like to do is have a great summer. I hope you get a lot of sunshine, and I am going to call it quits. Thank you very much. Have a great time. Good summer. Bye.